The war had been going on for 3 long years. Captain Yunho stood on the bridge of his ship watching the enemy destroy everything around him. The peaceful people of Altaris were losing badly against the evil Vexen Empire. Their ships were faster and stronger, and they showed no mercy to anyone. The bridge was full of smoke and the lights kept flickering. Captain Yunho was one of only 50 humans who had come to help the Alliance fight. He had volunteered because he believed in doing the right thing. Even though Earth was staying out of the war, many humans had come anyway to help innocent people. His friend Veltar ran up to him with fear in his eyes. Veltar was an Altarian with blue skin and 4 arms. He was shaking as he spoke. "Sir, we have lost contact with the 4th Fleet. The Vexens have broken through our last line of defense. They are heading straight for our homeworlds where millions of families live. Through the big window, Captain Yunho could see Vexen ships everywhere. They looked like giant black spiders with red lights. Their weapons were tearing apart. Alliance ships like they were made of paper. Each Vexen ship was 3 times bigger than the biggest Alliance ship, and they had weapons that could destroy entire planets. Lieutenant Kim Da-hee. His aide stood beside him watching the terrible battle. She was young and brave and had followed him from Earth. She had short black hair and determined eyes that never gave up even when things looked impossible. "Sir, what should we do?" she asked quietly. Captain Yunho made a decision that would change everything. "Send an emergency message to Earth. Right now," he commanded. "Tell them what is happening here. Show them the videos of the Vexens destroying civilian colonies. Tell them about the families running for their lives. Tell them the Vexens do not take prisoners, they kill everyone." Kim Da-hee ran to the communication station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she prepared the most important message of her life. The message would travel faster than light across the galaxy, carrying with it horrible videos of Vexen war crimes. Burning cities filled the screens. Millions of refugees were running with whatever they could carry. Children were crying for their parents who would never come home. The message showed Vexen soldiers destroying hospitals and schools. It showed them laughing as they burned farms and killed innocent people. The Vexens did not just want to win the war. They wanted to wipe out every other form of life in the galaxy. They believed only they deserved to live back on Earth. President Park. Jin Woo was working late in his office when the message arrived. He was a kind man who had always tried to keep Earth safe by staying out of galactic wars. But when he saw the videos, his face turned red with anger. His hands shook as he watched children running from burning buildings. "How long would it take to get our fleet ready?" he asked his military advisor quietly. 3 days, sir, to get all the ships ready. But the trip to the Warzone would take 2 weeks. We would have to travel across half the galaxy. Make it happen. President Park said with steel in his voice. "We are going to war. Call every ship, call every pilot. Tell them what we saw here today. Earth joins the fight." Meanwhile, Captain Yunho's ship was under heavy attack. Vexen fighters were swarming around them like angry wasps. Their lasers cut through the hull, and several crew members were hurt. The ship shook violently as more weapons hit them. "We have to go now," Lieutenant Kim Da-hee shouted over the noise of the battle. "Our shields are almost gone." Captain Yunho looked one last time at the space station they were trying to protect. Thousands of people lived there, including families with small children. The Vexens would kill them all just like they had killed everyone on the other stations. "All remaining Alliance ships retreat to the rally point," he ordered into his radio. "We will regroup and wait for help to arrive." As their ship jumped into hyperspace, Captain Yunho wondered if his message had reached Earth in time. The Alliance had maybe 1 week before total defeat. Would Earth be able to get there fast enough to save millions of innocent lives? The surviving Alliance ships scattered to different hiding places in space. Each captain knew they were probably going to die, but they refused to give up hope. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, help might be coming. The question was whether it would arrive before the Vexens finished their terrible plan to destroy every living thing that was not like them. The news spread across Earth faster than wildfire. Admiral Lee Sung-min, commander of Earth Defense Force, sat in his office watching the terrible videos that Captain Yunho had sent. His face was hard as stone as he saw the Vexens destroying beautiful worlds and turning them into dead rocks covered with ash. "This ends now," he told his staff in a voice that made everyone stop and listen. "Prepare every single ship we have. I want our entire fleet ready for war in 3 days, not 4, not 5, but 3. Commander Choi Min-ah, his best tactical officer, pulled up the fleet information on the big screen. Sir, we have 200 warships that can fight right away. The heavy cruisers, Seoul and Busan, have our newest weapons. The pilots have been training for years, but they have never been in a real battle against enemies who want to kill them. They are about to learn what real fighting means. Admiral Lee Sung-min said grimly, "Send orders to every base on Earth and every space station. Tell them we are going to war. Tell them why we are going to war. Show them the videos, all across Earth. The greatest mobilization in human history began. Shipyards that had been building peaceful exploration ships quickly started making weapons instead. Civilian pilots volunteered by the thousands. Young men and women lined up at recruitment centers, wanting to help save innocent alien lives they had never met. Dr. Yang Soo-jin, head of the weapons development program, had not slept for 2 days. She was working around the clock with her team to put new plasma cannons and shield systems on every ship. The new quantum torpedoes were still being tested, but she knew they would work. They had to work. Captain Kang Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Incheon. It was the biggest and strongest battleship Earth had ever built. It had taken 5 years to construct and was armed with weapons that could crack moons in half. As he watched thousands of crew members boarding the ships, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. These young people had families at home. They had dreams of peaceful futures, exploring the galaxy and making friends with alien species. Instead, they were about to fight an enemy that had conquered half the known galaxy and killed billions of innocent people. The Vexans had never lost a major battle. Their ships were bigger. Their weapons were older and more tested. They had been fighting wars for thousands of years, while humans had only been in space for a few hundred years. But humans had something the Vexans did not have. They fought to protect others, not to conquer them. They fought because it was right, not because they wanted power. The alien refugees in the videos could have been human children running from burning schools. They could have been human families trying to escape with their lives. Lieutenant Park, So Young from the communications station, announced that all ships were ready. Her voice was steady, but everyone could hear the excitement underneath. All 200 ships report ready for departure, sir. Every crew member is at their station. Every weapon system is charged and ready. Admiral Lee Sung-min looked out at the fleet floating in space around Earth. Each ship contained brave men and women who were willing to travel across the galaxy to help people they had never met. It was the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. "Then let's go show these Vexans what happens when they hurt innocent people," he said, as the fleet prepared to enter hyperspace behind them. Earth orbital defense platforms powered up, ready to protect the home world while their children went to war. The journey would take 2 weeks of traveling through hyperspace, but intelligence. Reports said the Alliance had less than 1 week before total defeat. It was going to be very close. The fate of millions of lives depended on whether the human fleet could get there in time. As the ships disappeared into hyperspace, families on Earth looked up at the stars and prayed for their children to come home safe. They knew the fleet was humanity, best hope of stopping a genocide that would echo across the galaxy forever. General Korthak stood on the command deck of the last Alliance stronghold, watching red dots fill his screens. Each red dot was a Vexan warship, and there were more than 1,000 of them surrounding the final 3 Alliance worlds. His own forces were down to 47 combat-ready ships, and most of those were damaged. The Altarian general had 4 arms and green skin that had turned pale with worry. He had been fighting this war for 3 years, and had watched his people die, one planet at a time. The Vexans were like a disease that spread across the galaxy, killing everything in their path. "Sir, we are receiving multiple surrender messages from the Vexan fleet," his communication officer reported. The officer was young and scared, like everyone else on the ship. "They promised to let civilian populations live if we give up our weapons right now." General Korthak knew it was a lie. The Vexans had made the same promise to 12 other worlds. Then they had landed troops and killed every single living thing, including pets and plants. They did not just want to win, they wanted to be the only species left alive in the universe. He was about to order his remaining ships to make one final desperate attack when his communication officer suddenly shouted with excitement that cut through the gloom on the bridge. "General, I am getting a transmission from Captain Yoon-ho, the human advisor. He says Earth fleet is coming to help us. When will they be here?" General Korthak asked, hardly daring to believe it could be true. "Captain Yoon-ho says 6 hours, sir. 200 human warships are on their way." The news traveled through the Alliance fleet like electricity. Soldiers who had written their final letters home suddenly found new hope. Gunners, who had been saving their last shots for themselves, instead loaded their weapons again. On the planets below, civilians, who had been hiding in underground shelters, looked up at the sky and started to believe they might live to see another sunrise. Vexen, Admiral Zethkar, was in his command ship when he received the news about the incoming human fleet. He was a massive creature with black scales and red eyes that glowed in the dark. His species had conquered 47 different alien races over the past 1,000 years. He started laughing when his scouts reported the human ships approaching. 200 primitive ships against my 1,000 vessels. He said to his officers, "This will be more entertaining than destroying the Alliance weaklings. These humans have never fought a real war. They explore and trade and make friends, how cute." The Vexens had studied human ships from a distance. They looked small and weak compared to Vexen battleships. Human weapons appeared simple and their armor seemed thin. The Vexens had ships that were 5 times bigger, with weapons that had been tested in hundreds of battles across the galaxy. Prepare to crush them the moment they arrive. Admiral Zethkar ordered all ships move to attack formation. When they see our fleet, they will probably try to run away like cowards. Captain Yoon-ho was still on his damaged Alliance ship, helping coordinate the defense. He had been sending messages back and forth with the approaching human fleet, giving them information about Vexen positions and weapon types. All remaining Alliance ships fall back to defensive positions around the civilian evacuation zones, he radioed to the scattered survivors. "When the Earth fleet arrives, we support them however we can. Even if we can only distract the enemy for a few minutes, it might help." The hours crawled by like years. Both sides prepared for what everyone knew would be the final battle of the war. Either the humans would arrive in time to save millions of innocent lives, or the Vexens would complete their plan to wipe out every non-Vexen species in this part of the galaxy. On the planets below, families huddled together in bomb shelters, listening to the sounds of Vexen fighters screaming overhead. Children asked their parents if the humans would really come to save them. Parents gave answers they hoped were true, but were not sure they believed themselves. In 6 hours they would all find out whether hope was stronger than hatred, whether courage could overcome cruelty, and whether a species that had never fought a galactic war could defeat an empire that had never known defeat. Space around the planet, Altaris Prime, suddenly filled with bright flashes of light as 200 Earth warships dropped out of hyperspace at exactly the same time. The coordination was perfect, like a dance that had been practiced for years. Admiral Lee Sung-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the massive Vexen fleet spread out before them. "My God," whispered Commander Choi Min-ah as she stared at her tactical display. "There are so many of them." The Vexen ships looked like a black cloud covering the stars. Each one was enormous, with spikes and weapon ports covering their hulls. "Numbers are not everything." Admiral Lee Sung-min replied in a calm voice that steadied everyone around him. "All ships battle formation. Alpha, prepare to engage the enemy immediately." The human fleet moved with a precision that surprised everyone watching. Both the Alliance survivors and the Vexen commanders had expected the humans to hesitate or show fear when they saw how outnumbered they were. Instead, the Earth ships flowed into perfect attack formations like water, finding its way downhill. Each ship knew exactly where to go without needing detailed orders. The formations were designed to let human ships support each other while making it hard for the bigger Vexen ships to target them effectively. It was like watching 200 dancers perform a deadly ballet in the darkness of space. Vexen Admiral Zethkar watched the human movements with growing interest instead of amusement. "They move well for primitives," he admitted to his bridge crew. "No matter, all ships advance and destroy them. Show them what real warriors look like." The first exchange of weapons, fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks show. Vexen plasma beams lanced out toward the human ships, leaving trails of red light while Earth quantum torpedoes streaked back in brilliant blue streams. The Alliance forces watched from their hiding spots, hardly daring to breathe. What happened next shocked everyone. The human ships danced through the Vexon weapons fire like leaves in the wind. Their movements were so graceful and unpredictable that most of the enemy shots missed completely. Meanwhile, the human weapons hit their targets with deadly accuracy. Captain Kang Ji-hoon commanded his heavy cruiser Seoul with the skill of someone who had trained his entire life for this moment. Target their command ship. He ordered his weapons officer full power to the main guns. The Seoul main cannon charged with a sound, like thunder rolling across mountains. Then it fired a brilliant blue beam that cut through space faster than the eye could follow. The beam hit the Vexon flagship shields and kept going, punching through the alien armor like it was made of thin metal. Impossible, Admiral Zethkar shouted as his ship shook around him and damage alarms screamed. How can primitive weapons break through our shields? Our armor has never been penetrated by any alien technology. What he did not know was that Earth scientists had spent decades studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Dr. Yang Soo-jin team had developed weapons specifically designed to counter alien shield frequencies and armor compositions. The quantum torpedoes used physics, principles that most galactic species had never even discovered. Lieutenant Kim Da-hee was now commanding a fighter squadron leading 12 small but deadly ships in an attack on a Vexon carrier that was launching bombers toward the civilian evacuation. Sights, follow my lead. She radioed to her pilots. We go in fast and we go in hard. Her fighters dove toward the massive enemy ship like hawks attacking a giant slow bird. They twisted and spun through defensive fire that should have destroyed them. But their pilots were too skilled and too determined. The human missiles found their targets and the Vexon carrier exploded in a ball of fire, so bright it could be seen from the planet's surface. As the battle continued, it became clear that something impossible was happening. The human fleet that should have been crushed in minutes was not just surviving but winning. Their ships were faster than Vexon intelligence had reported. Their weapons were far more powerful than anyone had imagined, and their pilots flew with a combination of courage and skill that left their enemies stunned. The Vexons had conquered dozens of species, but they had never fought anyone like humans before. 1 hour into the battle, the impossible was happening all across the Warzone. Human ships that should have been destroyed were shrugging off enemy weapons like rain, while their own guns tore through Vexon armor that had been considered invincible. The enemy formation was breaking apart as ship after ship exploded or drifted helplessly in space. Commander Park So-young coordinated the fleet movements from the tactical center of the flagship. Her voice stayed calm and professional, even as she watched miracles happening on every screen. Destroyer Group. 7, target those cruisers attacking the left flank. Fighter Wing. Alpha, protect those Alliance evacuation ships. The human pilots were flying like they had been born in space. Lieutenant Kim Da-hee led her squadron in attack after attack, never hesitating even when facing ships 10 times larger than her fighter. Her voice came over the radio clear and confident as she called out targets for her wing. Follow me in. We are going to stop them from hurting any more innocent people. The Vexon pilots had been trained to fight enemies who used similar tactics and similar technology, but humans fought differently. They took risks that seemed crazy, but somehow worked. They protected each other with a teamwork that the individualistic Vexons could not understand. When one human ship was in trouble, 5 others would risk themselves to help. Admiral Zethkar realized with growing horror that his mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed by opponents he had dismissed as primitive. The tactical display showed red marks where his ships had been eliminated, spreading across his formation like a deadly infection. How is this possible? He roared at his tactical officer. These humans have never fought a galactic war. Their technology should be centuries behind ours. Sir, our intelligence was wrong. His officer replied with fear in his voice. Their weapons are more advanced than anything we have seen. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than our reports indicated. And their pilots, they fight like they are not afraid to die. Admiral Zethkar watched another of his heavy cruisers explode under human fire. The ship had survived battles with 6 different alien species over the past century, but it lasted less than 10 minutes against the Earth destroyers that surrounded it. Retreat. He finally ordered, his voice cracking with disbelief. All ships retreat to hyperspace. We must regroup and call for reinforcements, but Admiral Lee Sung-min had anticipated this moment. All ships implement containment protocol, he ordered calmly. Do not let any of them escape. Human vessels that had been positioned around the edge of the battle zone suddenly activated devices that the Vexans had never seen before. Gravity disruptors created a field that prevented hyperspace jumps from working. The Vexan fleet was trapped like fish in a net, and they knew it. Some Vexan ships tried to ram human vessels in desperate suicide attacks, but even this failed. The human ships were too fast and their captains too skilled to be caught by such crude tactics. Instead, the ramming ships found themselves targeted by multiple human vessels and destroyed before they could reach their target's captain. Yunho watched from his alliance ship as the tide of battle turned completely in favor of the humans. He had fought alongside these people for years, but he had never seen anything like this. They were not just winning, they were dominating an enemy that had seemed unbeatable. They are doing it, he whispered to his crew as another Vexan battleship broke in half under human fire. They are actually saving us all. The battle that military experts had predicted would last for days was ending in less than 3 hours. Of the 1,000 Vexan ships that had entered the system, fewer than 50 remained, and most of those were sending surrender signals. The rest were either destroyed completely or floating dead in space with their crews begging for mercy. For the first time in galactic history, the mighty Vexan Empire had been utterly defeated. The silence after the battle was almost as shocking as the fighting had been. For 3 hours, space had been filled with explosions and weapons fire and the screams of dying ships. Now there was only the gentle hum of human vessels moving through the debris field looking for survivors. Admiral Lee Sung-min stood on the bridge of the engine, accepting the formal surrender of the few Vexan commanders who had survived. Admiral Zethkar stood before him, his black armor scorched and cracked, his red eyes dim with defeat. He could barely look at the human officer who had destroyed his fleet so completely. Your empire is finished, Admiral Lee Sung-min told him in a voice that was firm, but not cruel. The worlds you conquered will be set free. The species you enslaved will be liberated. And if you ever threaten innocent civilians again anywhere in the galaxy, we will come back and finish what we started here. The news of the human victory spread through hyperspace communication networks, faster than anyone thought possible. Every species in the galaxy heard the same impossible story. A fleet from Earth had destroyed the Vexan Empire in a single battle. The age of Vexan terror was over. On the Alliance worlds, people poured out of their shelters and into the streets, crying and laughing and hugging strangers. General Korthak found Captain Yunho on the space station they had defended and embraced him with all 4 arms. Your people saved us all, he said with tears streaming down his green face. We owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid. We could not stand by and watch innocent people die, Captain Yunho replied. That is not who we are as a species. We came here because it was the right thing to do. Dr. Yang Sujin arrived on the first transport ship from Earth, bringing medical supplies and equipment to rebuild the damaged worlds. As she worked alongside alien scientists to repair the destruction, she was amazed at how quickly enemies could become friends when they worked together toward a common goal. The galactic political situation changed overnight. Species that had been forced to serve the Vexan Empire suddenly found their voices again. Trade routes that had been controlled by fear opened up to all peaceful civilizations. Small planets that had hidden from galactic politics sent ambassadors to Earth asking for friendship and protection. Captain Kang Ji-hoon was promoted to admiral and given command of the new Galactic Peacekeeping Force, a joint military organization with representatives from dozens of worlds. Commander Choi Min-ah became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, while Lieutenant Park So-young established communication networks that would prevent future misunderstandings from turning into wars. The surviving Vexans were not executed or enslaved. Instead, they were given the chance to learn new ways of living. Human teachers worked with Vexan children, showing them that strength came from helping others, not from hurting them. Some adult Vexans refused to change, but many others slowly began to understand that cooperation was better than conquest. as the human fleet prepared to return to Earth. They left behind a galaxy that had been transformed. The age of empire and conquest was ending, replaced by an era of cooperation and friendship between different species. And somewhere in space, on ships heading toward distant stars, human voices could be heard singing old songs from home, carrying the dream of peace to worlds they had never seen. The war was over. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as conquerors seeking power, but as protectors defending the innocent, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Children on 1,000 worlds would grow up in peace because a group of humans had decided that some things were worth fighting for, no matter how dangerous the fight might be.